So, what were your initial thoughts when news of the pandemic first emerged and it became clear that the outbreak had the potential to become a global health crisis?
I think that my initial reaction, one was how scary it was going to be for just the world, our community, and what was ahead, which was essentially having to take a step back and look at ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I recognized I'm not going to say danger, but the challenge of sitting with ourselves in silence, which is really essentially what everybody was forced to do. So everybody
Right.
was forced on this healing journey instead of, filling ourselves. There's only so much Netflix you can watch. There's only so much Hulu that you can watch
It's only so much sleep
until
you can get.
exactly until you're just like, oh, I'm stuck with myself, and all these things start to surface. So I was nervous about that, but we were forced to be with ourselves. And I know that in my initial healing journey that started a while back, that
Mm-hmm.
was tough for me being with, and it was like, oh, I have to face all of these things. Um, so it was just, I found it to be interesting. And I was scared, I was sad. And then just the uncertainty of it all was definitely anxiety provoking. So a range of emotions, but nothing about it was like, oh, this is exciting. Like, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah.
next question. How did the pandemic affect your mental health?
Um, it was quite the opposite for me. Like I like being to myself. Um, but it forced me to develop skills that I did not have prior to.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm speaking like in my career. I love doing speaking engagements. I love doing workshops, but I enjoy being in person. So being forced to do it on Zoom
Right.
was totally different. So I had to step up my personality via camera, and I'm camera shy. So that was really, really hard career wise. But as far as like mentally, I had already been in therapy. I had already built out a pretty strong support system. So it just strengthened, if anything else. It was like, okay, I know how to handle isolation. I know how to reach out for resources and things like that. So I'm not going to say it didn't impact me, but it wasn't detrimental whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. And when did you become aware of the increases in suicide rates during the pandemic, and what were your thoughts?
You said, when did I become aware of it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that I'm gonna say it just happened, but the need for crisis intervention increased, the need for workshops increased, so just the need for mental health services increased.
Mm-hmm.
So that was probably my initial instinct. But again, recognizing what was ahead was definitely like a red flag, like, hey, something's about to kind of surface for sure.
Because I definitely feel like the rates went up even more during the pandemic.
Yes, yes. I don't know the exact number, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that mental health and suicide rates were discussed enough in the media during the pandemic?
I'm not really a TV girl, so to
Same.
properly, yeah, I don't, I don't know. I think it was a. I'll talk like as far as youth. I think it brought about a conversation of what's better for our kids to stay home or to go back to school. Like what's going to be better for them emotionally, socially, and things like that. So I do believe that a lot of conversations were brought to light that I appreciated, such as sending kids home without knowing what their home life was like.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and putting them back in situations where school essentially was their safe haven. So as far as my understanding of it, it was a little bit different because I worked in the school system.
Mm-hmm.
So again, when you asked that original question of what were my initial thoughts when the pandemic first happened, it definitely went out to like my babies, like the kids that I was working with.
Yeah, I definitely feel like, I mean, everyone was affected by the pandemic, but I feel like the kids were affected the most.
For sure, for sure. Um, yeah, I absolutely agree.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that the long-term effects of the pandemic might still be affecting everyone's mental health? And if so, what can we do
Yes.
about it?
Definitely going to be a long-term effect. I think that us being isolated and being forced to be with ourselves was necessary because it kind of brought mental health to the front line.
Mm-hmm.
It was a buzzing topic and it was a buzzing conversation. But once it hit, I think everybody finally recognized, hey, we all have mental health. There's a difference between mental health and mental illness. And I think that's an important thing to talk about and to bring about. So, yeah, what was your second part for the question?
So what do you think we can do about it?
As far as what? Do about what?
Because I feel like the pandemic has affected us in so many different ways, especially when it comes to like mental health and illnesses. So what do you think that we can do about it to make those effects not long term, or what can we change about it, or what kind of resources can we provide to those that are still struggling with their mental health because of the pandemic?
Um, I think we can essentially practice being proactive with our mental health. So, implementing different coping skills such as meditation, journaling, those basic things that we can apply in our everyday lifestyle, learning those breathing exercises, being proactive with our mental health, which is my whole motto, is essentially preparing for what could come and having those skills if they do get worse. So I think everybody flocking to therapy, everybody flocking to resources was very powerful
Mm-hmm.
because now we're equipping ourselves for what could be long term. So I'm a realist, so I'm not going to be like, oh, it was such a great thing. But I do
Right.
believe that there were a lot of positives that came out of it. It became very action oriented instead of just a conversation.
I agree. I agree. And it's so funny because I feel like therapy is still taboo within our community. Like I feel like a
I
lot of
mean,
people are going, but it's still not enough.
I think that the work is being done behind doors. I don't, and we talked about this as far as should people be put on a platform to talk about their mental health. I don't think so. Like I was at Thanksgiving a few times back, and I was talking about therapy because I'm that family member that's always going to talk about mental health. And I was like, yeah, my new therapist is this, and that. And then I had an aunt that was like, oh, I love my therapist. And I had a cousin that was like, oh my God, I love my therapist. So it may not be forthright, but I think the work is being done. And, but I also think that everybody doesn't have to put like on blast, like, this is exactly what I'm doing for, you know what I
Right.
mean? Enforcing the conversation. I think everybody's journal is personal and as they see fit. So, yeah, it's definitely still taboo. It's definitely still something that is not um, taken advantage of, I guess. But I'm not going to discredit those that are doing
Doing the
it.
work.
And I think,
Right.
yeah, I think it's easy to do that by just putting the blanket statement of saying, yeah, it's still taboo in our community when there are people that are actually putting in the work. They may not be on social giving their whole therapy
Right.
process, um, but I've seen firsthand that if the conversation started, people that are comfortable are going to talk about it. People that aren't, they can keep that to themselves.
Right.
But I do think the people that have chosen to be on a platform, it's important to continue.
And I think those who are comfortable about it are helping those become comfortable speaking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Transparency and storytelling are definitely everything.
And we spoke about medication. So, what are your thoughts about the stigma surrounding medication?
I think that it's rightful. I think people have a right to their own opinion. I've had my own personal journey with medication. And I'll always speak from a lived experience and a experience only. Oh, this is anonymous, whatever.
No,
I
you
only speak
good.
from I only speak from a experience, and I have been on, I've been off, I've had great doctors, I've had terrible doctors, I've been heavily medicated, I've been on a perfect regimen, which is what I'm on now. But it's a trial and error thing. And I understand when people are like, look, I don't like the way it makes me feel. This isn't for me. I want to try an alternate route. Totally personal choice. But for me, I chose to continue the process to find a proper doctor and to not give up on just being told what to do. Like I wanted to take control over my own life and
Hmm.
over my own healing space. And
That's
medication
good.
definitely helps me. Yeah, it helps me a lot.
Yeah, because I feel like some people would just believe anything, and not to say anything's wrong with that, because we should have some type of trust when it comes to professionals who are, doctors or therapists, whatever the case may be. But I think that's great that you were very proactive in being more involved in your life.
Yes, absolutely. You have to. And I think it gave me the skills to advocate for myself, just not within a doctor's office, but outside in the world and my career space and my relationships and my friendships. learning how to be assertive, learning how to stand up for yourself and saying, hey, this works, this doesn't work, and you're going to listen to me. So
Right.
it was a life lesson more than anything.
Right. And are you ever concerned about the possibility of experiencing another attempt?
Um, I don't really think about it.
Good.
I don't, yeah, I'm not gonna say I don't necessarily live my life in worry. Like I have days where I'm anxious and things like that, but I don't wake up and I'm like, oh no, I think I'm going to have an attempt today.
Right.
Again, it goes back to me being proactive with my mental health and keeping that self-awareness to where it needs to be.
And you look happy.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yes, the skin is skinning, honey. The teeth is nice and white. Like, come on now.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.